Hello, everybody. It is that time of year when everybody in the world is doing their top 10 lists or the best things from the past year or whatever it might be that is wrapping up the year that was 2021. So I don't want to be any different than that because I like to, kind of follow that trend. And one of the things that I want to do today is I want to introduce a concept here on the Didactic Cafe that I call the 5 by 5. And so the idea would be 5 things from 2021 that have had an impact on me, that I learned from, that were successes, failures, something along those lines. And then 5 goals that I have for 2022. And while this is intensely personal, this is a thing that's me, I definitely feel like it has some things that can impact the audiences at large. So either inspiring you to think along these lines as well, things that you can improve upon, things that you could be aware of, but also just challenging some thinking. One of the things that I want to do today is I'm just going to go over really kind of what it means to be, a human being. That's really what the 5 by 5 is about. Like, what does it mean to be an ethical, moral, and aware human being? So the 5 things that I'm going to talk about from 2021, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the amazing things that I learned from the girls in my life, my daughters and my wife. I want to talk about really the impact of what happened on January 6th, not in a political perspective, but just kind of what it made me think about as an American, as a Christian, and as a human being. I want to talk about what I've learned from the year of being an AP teacher, the challenges and the successes. I want to talk a little bit about the economics of the world right now, especially for those who are teachers and writers, careers that, for writers anyway, unless you're super successful, it may have been a rough year for you. And then I want to talk about some writing successes I had. My goals for 2021, just to kind of give you a heads up, I want to be more present for my family, friends, education, that kind of thing. I want to grow more as an AP teacher. I want to learn better techniques and skills. I also want to talk about the idea of developing discovering a great marketing tool for writing. I want to complete the current Sawyer Shepherd series that I'm on. And then the last thing is I want to start an audiobook. I want to actually get one of those out there for a change. So those are my things that I'm going to talk about for this year, the things that we're going to cover in this particular podcast. This is the Didactic Cafe, and I'm your host, Chad Lehrman. So this past year has been one in which I have been radically inspired by the women in my life, specifically my wife and my 2 daughters. Just to kind of give you a little bit of background, my wife is a fitness coach as well as a special education teacher. My daughters are very involved currently in some pretty athletic endeavors. My oldest is in gymnastics, competitive gymnastics in high school. She's coming back after 6 years of not competing, but continuing to do gymnastics. And then my youngest daughter is a cheerleader at the high school that I work at. And so watching them this year has been an inspiration. So when I'm going through my list of 5 things, I want to start with and end with good things. And then we'll kind of sandwich some not so good things there in the middle. But the good thing that I see from my family is that I see with my daughters a sense of purpose and persistence. So my oldest is very, like I said, she took 6 years off of gymnastics, competitive gymnastics, simply because she had a bad competitive experience. And there was nothing like that first moment of watching her at this competition this past fall, when she gets out on the floor and she does her floor routine, and she does her vault, and the joy that was on her face again, because we never thought we'd see that again. We never thought we would see that moment where she embraced this sport that she loves in a competitive way. Now, she's been doing it for the last 6 years as just for fun, just for something to do on the side, to stay healthy. But her coach came to her and said, "Hey, we really want you to join the team," and so thankful for that advice, just for that request from her coach, because it did make a difference. And Leslie has come onto the team, and she is, to be completely honest, she's not the best on the team. Like that's understandable. I mean, she hasn't competed in 6 years, and these other girls have been. But she's in it, and she's belonging to something. And so I'm so proud of her for that. I'm proud of seeing the way that she persisted and continued to do that. On the other hand, my younger daughter, she has had what I think might be the absolute best possible freshman year you can have. It seems like things have fallen into place for her. As a freshman cheerleader, she's gotten to cheer not only at freshman and JV games, she's actually gotten to cheer at some varsity volleyball games, even as they went into the playoffs. And she was able to cheer for the football team, who got to go all the way to the state game. And she was cheering from the sidelines up until the state game. Cheering from the stands up until the state game. And even then, she kind of got to go with her friends and be a part of that, and still wear their cheer, CSHS cheer shirts and all that. And it's been fun to watch that, like to watch her really embrace the high school life and have a great time doing it. But not only just involving herself in what was going on, and being a part of something, but doing it well, and being a successful student as well as athlete. And that's something I'm proud of for both of them, is that they have taken on a lot of responsibilities this year. And my oldest also coaches gymnastics at the same gym that she does practices at. And just watching what they've done has made me a very proud father. But I also mentioned my wife as well. I've been very proud of what she's done as a fitness coach. And this is really her first year to go out there and actually have classes. And the numbers are small, but she's persistent in it. And she and I had a very powerful conversation just the other day, which is going to inform something I'm going to talk about later on. And it's about mindset. And just saying that, for when she introduces herself, she always says, well, I'm a teacher and I do fitness on the side. And just the mindset shift that she wants to have of, I'm a fitness coach and I teach. Because her goal, what she wants to be, is a fitness coach, fitness and nutrition and that kind of thing. And she realizes the psychology. Me as a psychology teacher, love the idea of, it's not power positive thinking, name it, claim it kind of junk. It's really this idea that if you believe you are something, if you believe that this is who your identity is, then put that out there. And I'm not a big fan of the term imposter syndrome, because I think it's like a lot of other phrases in 2021, way overused. But I do know that it is a real thing where we begin to question ourselves. Like, am I really who I say I am? And what my wife is doing is going through that emotional and personal and identity. I'm going to use the word crisis, not in the sense that it's a negative thing, but making choices about who she is. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud to see what she's doing and how she's working. It's inspiring me to think about that too. And I kind of came to this realization on my own a few weeks back, but this is not a hobby. I'm not a writer for a hobby for fun. I'm a writer because this is my dream. This is what I want to be. This is what I want to do. And this podcast is a way for me to express that, and hopefully one other avenue I can get the word out about that. To shift gears from the positivity of what I learned from my family, I want to go back to a darker day in 2021, January 6th. The situation that occurred at the Capitol building, where people claiming to be followers of Donald Trump and opposing the approval of the Electoral College of Joe Biden being elected president. And again, I don't want this to be a political thing, because what I saw on that day was something that scared me, as, first of all, as a Christian, secondly, as an American, and third, as a human. I was terrified by what I saw that day, because I saw people who were proclaiming Jesus Christ as their Savior, yet calling for the blood of those they opposed politically. I saw people who claimed to be Christians condemning with hate and vitriol and just negativity. And it breaks my heart to know that that's not what Christianity is supposed to be about. And it made me really question, have we lost sight of something? How does this kind of dovetail into my 2021 reflection? It made me really question, no, let me back up. It clarified for me why I think so many people are struggling with the established Christian church, with the idea of going to a place of worship that would not only allow their believing members, their members to proudly talk this way, whether they were at the insurrection or not. The way that I see Christians talking about other people so frequently is far from loving. Not only do churches seemingly allow that, but in some cases they encourage it. There are churches that you can see posting stuff on social media and Instagram that's just painful. That's not who Christ calls us to be, and that's a struggle that I have. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Every one of us fails in that. I get that. But there's a difference in failing and going, man, I messed up, I don't want to do that again, and saying, I'm going to blatantly reject the core belief system of my faith, which is love, faith, hope, and love, and instead embrace aggression and anger and hate. And that breaks my heart. And then to dive directly from my faith to the fact that as an American citizen, what I saw that day, I want to recognize that there are people who are very frustrated in the system, that there are people who very much believe that an election was stolen, though there's no evidence of that. And I don't want this to come across as me being dismissive of their claims or their fears or their what their assertions are. But I want you to see that as an American, that lack of trust in our system is not unearned. Our system is broken. And I saw that on January 6th. Not just the idea that people are buying into what I believe is a lie, a very big lie, but also that people had reached the point where they so distrusted what was going on in their government that they could believe that lie. When we talk politics in America, it's often talking at someone. We are talking at people about what we believe instead of listening to a dialogue between us. And that's really what I think, if you dive into the core of this is what it's really about. It's that Democrats don't listen to Republicans and Republicans don't listen to Democrats. And regular, ordinary, you and me, everyday citizens have stopped listening to each other. And that's how we get to that point. This is not, yes, we talk about, oh, my rights are being infringed or a loss of freedoms and all these things. And yes, that's part of it. But what it really comes down to is we don't feel heard in America because we ourselves are not listening to others either. We have become both deaf and mute in the regard of human kindness and respect. Which leads me to the third thing that January 6th taught me. That as a human being, we've got to do better. We have got to listen. We have got to engage. We have got to respect. I have a right to disagree with you. That does not mean I hate you. You have a right to disagree with me, and that does not mean that you hate me. But too often, that's what we hear. That's what we see. And that's what we feel. Sometimes we have to put aside what we feel. As a teacher, I know that sometimes my students attack me. They come at me. They're aggressive towards me. And it's not me. I'm just the focal point at that moment. We have got to recognize that sometimes when people are angry at us, meeting that with anger is not going to resolve anything. It's just going to escalate. Sometimes we need to take a step back and go, why are they coming at me? Did I do something? 1. 2, is there something that I am connected to that they see me as a part of that bothers them, and why? 3, am I in any way, shape, or form able to meet the need that they currently are lacking? Because that's what it really is. When somebody comes up with you with anger, there's something that they are lacking. Okay, I got to realize time-wise, I got to move on. That was my big negative moment. Okay, AP teaching. Actually, it's been a great thing. This is I know my transitions here are really weird on this. I apologize for that. But let me make a transition connection here. January 6th was about something that was a historical moment. I enjoy teaching AP World History. There's my connection. AP World History has been a fun challenge. And one of the things that's been really great is that as a teacher, I think I learned something a while back that really benefited me this year, which was to be able to look at my students and say, I'm still learning too, and I'm going to make mistakes. So what can I do to improve? And really listening to that. We had that moment early on in the semester when students, I think, were really questioning me. Not I think. Students were questioning whether I knew what I was doing. I was questioning if I knew what I was doing. But instead of being handicapped by that or being just frozen by that fear of failure, I chose to look into it and go, okay, if I'm messing up, now is the time for me to ask for corrective action and make those moves. And that's something that I learned that my second year of teaching, that if you stop and say, what can I do better? That's a powerful moment. It gives agency to the students to listen to realize that one, we do care what they think and that they are in fact learning. But two, it also really, it forces you as the teacher to ask that question of yourself. Am I willing to change? Reflect on my practice, reflect on what I'm doing. And you know what? This goes beyond just teaching. This is a great tool for life. If you're having a relationship problem, if you're struggling in a relationship, if you're struggling at work, stop and ask those around you, what can I do to improve? What can I do to be a better teacher, doctor, lawyer, bus driver, father, husband, whatever? Ask that question. And don't, back to that first thing, don't talk at a person. Listen to what they say. Don't let what they say destroy you. Let it repair you, or at least point out where the deficiencies in your actions are. The third thing I want to talk about is a deficiency in my life, which is money. And that's not uncommon for us here in America. That's something that 2021 has not been good for a lot of Americans. You read the news and people are saying, well, the economy is actually really great. And, the stock market's doing really great. And all this stuff is really great. But you know what else is really great? The cost of meat. It's really great. And not in a good way. It's expensive to buy food now. And that's a problem for many average Americans. And so I want you to be aware, as you probably are, that as things continue to go up, I know some people are saying, oh, this will pass. But in the interim time frame, for many people who are typically a paycheck to paycheck family, it cannot end soon enough. This is a problem for many of us. For me as a teacher and as a writer, teachers, we got a raise this year and it was gone by the time October came around, simply because the price of everything far eclipsed what our raises were. And so that becomes an issue for those of us who are two teacher families. It's not a big deal. As writers, it impacts us too, because when people start cutting back on things because meat is so expensive, the luxury things they cut back on are often entertainment based. Guess what? Writing is entertainment. And so people cut back on those things. So it hits me in both of the areas where I'm trying to make a living. And so that's been a struggle this year. And I also realize that it may force me into a situation where I take on not just a second job, but a third. And so that is something that I'm having to deal with, as are many other teachers. I actually did a kind of a poll, but also sort of just advice on Facebook the other day. And I asked my teacher friends, hey, how many of you have work multiple jobs in addition to teaching? And I had probably close to 24 responses, all saying, yep, sure do. This is a common thing. Guys, we are educated professionals. Some of us, many of us have master's degrees, and we're having to work 2 jobs. That's a problem with American society. If educators, people who are in charge of training up the next generation to be diligent, knowledgeable, engaged citizens, can't afford to do that job on its own, we have a problem. And I don't want to get into school finance because it's stupid, and also really makes no sense in Texas anyway. But guys, there's got to be something to do this. There's got to be a way to fix this, because we're going to be losing teachers left and right. We lost a ton last year. We're going to be losing them again, simply because we can't afford, literally can't afford, to stay in a career that continually undervalues us. The next thing I learned about this past year was my final good thing, writing success. Now, success is how you define it. I am by no means at the top of the Amazon #1 bestseller list overall, by any means. However, I was able to hit the #1 new release for American horror with my book Killtown. And honestly, like I've had success specifically with this book, with Killtown, which is my one-off horror story. Been very pleased with it. It has not been my biggest moneymaker, but it has been the most visible book that I've written. People talk about it, people see it, people respond to it. And so like I'm very excited to see about that. I love it. Like, it's amazing to see it still hanging out. Even now it's on the American Horror list. It pretty routinely pops back up in the top 100 on the overall category, not just new releases, but overall. And so like for me, that's success. And I think there's been a little bit of a tag along in that, and that Sawyer Shepherd Chronicles, those books have started, especially the first book, Rites of Passage, have started popping back up in the top 100 American horror as well. So very excited about book successes. Now, I want to shift gears from what was to what I hope will be in 2022. So in 2022, I have several goals. And my first goal, the #1 goal, has to start with my family. And that is that I want to be more present. We see this almost every year. I say this almost every year. I want to be more present with my family. Now, I made it to pretty much, I think every one of my daughter's cheer games. I made it to both of the tournaments so far that my daughter has competed in gymnastics in. So I'm there. I'm physically there, and I'm watching and I'm observing. But that's not enough for me. Like I want to be physically present. I want to be emotionally present, and I want to be attention present with both my wife and my children. That's something that we can all struggle with. It's this idea of, it's become a cliche now, but put the phone away thing. I am awful at that. Because oftentimes my phone is where I'm doing book marketing. It's where I'm checking social medias to see kind of like what connections I can make, what can I do there. And also I play a lot of like games on the phone. And so that makes me not as connected as I should be. So my #1 goal for this year is to be more present, to be more engaged, more family game nights. We do a lot. We do probably about once every month or so. But to try to do more than that, and just make sure that we're actually forming those connections, because I'm very much aware of the fact that I have about a year and a half left until my oldest daughter graduates and goes to college. And that's a real wake-up call to go, man, have I given them the attention and the time that they need while they're still here? I don't think it's hitting my life more than it's hitting me, but it's getting there. I'm starting to realize there is a countdown clock, a terrifying countdown clock. So make the most of the moments you've got. I also want to have a goal for AP growth. This is my first year teaching AP. I learned from some really great mentors, people who have taught the class in the past, who have really helped me, who have given me tons of stuff. But one of my goals is that I want to grow as a teacher of writing. And so I've done a lot of writing stuff. My kids have already been writing DBQs, LEQs. For those of you who don't know what those things are, they're just different types of essays, some with evidence, some without evidence. I've had kids writing those, but getting to the point where I can really coach them on how to write better is one of my AP growth goals. But a bigger one, I think, I feel like I have somewhat of a grasp on that. One of the ones that's bigger for me is that I want to do better lessons. Not just the lecture type stuff. I try to do no more than 2 days a week of notes, like lecture notes, but finding more creative and engaging ways to get students to interact with materials, to learn things, and to collect information, as well as analyze and detect information. So my last 3 goals are really going to be book related, writing related. But number 1, I want to discover or develop better marketing strategies. Book marketing is not cheap. It is a very expensive thing. I've learned that there are a few things I can spend $18 to $30 on and see some results with. But what I'm really struggling with is finding a way to get the word out more organically. Less, hey, I'm going to pay this company to do something that may or may not work. Because the truth is that when I spend $18 on an advertising plan and I sell like 5 books, I did not make my money back. This is problematic. So I am definitely in a deficit on that. And so I want to find better ways to do that. This is one tool to try to get the awareness out there, to try to make connections through this. I'm definitely working on, I actually created a second TikTok the other day because I'm glutton for punishment or whatever. I collect action figures, and I've customized some action figures to match the characters from my book series. So I'm going to do some action figure storytelling on that TikTok, and I'm kind of hoping that might be a niche that sort of attracts some people. So I'm doing a lot of experimenting already. I'm kind of thinking about ways to connect with that. Also, if you're listening and you are, a fellow podcaster, I'd love to do some connections, podcast connections, writing podcasts. I've done some interviews in the past with either YouTube video logs. Wow, I just went old all of a sudden with vlogs on YouTube, but also I've done a couple of podcast type things as well. I did a radio interview in England. That was kind of fun. So those kind of things. Looking for opportunities with preferably things that I don't have to pay you to do, and vice versa. So next, big milestone is coming up for me as a writer. My first novel was Sawyer Shepherd Chronicles: Rites of Passage. It was a young adult novel with a horror tinge to it, and over the series it's developed, but I am in the process right now of writing book 5, which is the final book of Sawyer Shepherd Chronicles. So my goal is to have that finished before the summer, for release this summer of 2022. And at that point, I will have finished a major chapter in my writing career. My first series will be completed. And I'm very excited about that, but I'm also kind of feeling these emotions. These are characters that I've created, and it's the final book in a series, so there's going to be some storylines wrapped up completely and finally. People have asked me, will I continue writing series? Yes, I will. I have 2 series in mind that I kind of want to get started at some point. One is a series about I'll just be honest, a former minister who's a high school psychology teacher who kind of acts like a Sherlock Holmes for a police department in analyzing religious and historical crimes, or religious and psychological crimes. If you've watched the TV show Evil, some similarity to the way these guys are sort of evaluating miracles and that kind of thing. The other one is I've always wanted to write a sort of action adventure series. Both of these would be ongoing. The action adventure series would be centered around a cop, probably in Houston. And I've got some vague outlines of where I want to go with that. But I also want to write some one-off stories. I have a couple of horror ideas that I really want to write. And I think one of the things I've learned about writing horror is that there's no such thing as a true one-off horror story. There's always room for more. So with that being said, Killtown was a big hit. Will there be a Killtown 2? Maybe someday. We'll see. That's definitely a possibility. But what I can tell you about Killtown, there is definitely more Killtown coming. And what more Killtown could you have than an audiobook? So I'm in the process of recording an audiobook version of Killtown. I am taking my time with it because I want to get it right. I am doing the audio myself, and so I'm practicing and learning voices. I've got some tricks that I'm trying out. We'll see if they work. But yeah, I'm really trying to figure out how to do this and do it well. So be looking for a Killtown audiobook again sometime in 2022. As far as Sawyer Shepherd Chronicles, that is beyond my skill level. So I will most likely begin working through the Amazon publishing process of finding a narrator for those books. So that's kind of where I stand on the audiobook thing. Those are my goals for the year. I want to challenge you in this last few moments just to say this. 2021 probably has not been the greatest year for a lot of us. But the truth is that even in the midst of a year that kind of wasn't great, I hope you can find some good things. I definitely found some good things. I'm proud of my family. I am excited to be teaching a new content area as a AP World History teacher. And I found some writing success. And for me, I think looking at positive things like that, that's what gives me hope for 2022. Because the world may burn down around us. Who knows? But we can try to find positive things in the midst of the flames. If your house is on fire, break out the marshmallows and the chocolate and the graham crackers and make some s'mores. Don't do that. Call 911. Really, like seriously, if your house is on fire, get out. But metaphorically speaking, if everything around you is on fire, make some s'mores. That's my advice for 2021 and hopefully not for 2022. Hopefully 2022 is a great year. But I hope you've enjoyed this segment of Didactic Cafe with our 5x5. And think about your 5x5. What are the things that you've learned from 2021? And what are the things that you hope to accomplish in 2022? I'm your host, Chad Lehrman. This has been Didactic Cafe.